In part one of Love Under the Belizean Moon, Jax Montgomery, a wealthy but disillusioned tech executive, arrives in Belize seeking an escape, but instead finds himself drawn to Sofia Castillo, a spirited waitress with dreams of marine conservation. Their fiery first encounter, marked by a spilled drink and sharp words, quickly turns into an undeniable attraction. As they open up to each other under the moonlit Belizean sky, Jax begins to question his life of privilege, while Sofia struggles with financial hardships and her secret mission to protect endangered manatees. However, their budding romance faces major obstacles. Jax's manipulative ex-fiancée Vanessa, who arrives to lure him back to his old life, and Sofia's conservation work, which lands her in trouble when she's caught trespassing in restricted waters. When a powerful tropical storm hits, forcing them into close quarters, their feelings intensify. After the storm, Jax proves his commitment by helping Sofia rebuild her devastated hometown. Just as they begin to find a future together, Sofia receives a threatening letter demanding she abandon her environmental work. With newfound purpose, Jax stands by Sofia's side to uncover the truth. As they fight against external forces and their own fears, Jax and Sofia must decide if their love is strong enough to bridge the gap between their worlds. The next morning dawned bright and warm, but the peaceful skies felt like a cruel contrast to Sofia's mounting worries. The letter weighed heavy on her mind, and she couldn't shake the feeling that someone was watching her every move. Jax, however, seemed unusually energized. "I have a plan," he announced, walking into the small community center where Sofia was helping organize supplies. He was holding 2 cups of coffee and a mischievous grin. Sofia raised an eyebrow. "Should I be scared?" "Probably," Jax replied, handing her a cup. "But hear me out. Whoever sent that letter is trying to scare you into stopping your work, right?" "Right," Sofia said cautiously. "So we beat them at their own game," Jax said, pulling out a notepad. "We set up a trap. Find out who's behind this and why." Sofia blinked. "A trap? What are we, in a spy movie?" "Look, I've watched a lot of spy movies," Jax said, completely serious. "It's basically the same thing. We lure them out, catch them in the act, and then, I don't know, threaten them with lawsuits. I'm still working on the details." Sofia stared at him for a moment before bursting into laughter. "You're ridiculous." "Ridiculous, but brilliant," Jax said, leaning against the table. "Come on, Sofia. Don't you want to know who's behind this?" "Of course I do," she admitted, sipping her coffee. "But this isn't exactly Silicon Valley. Things work differently here." "All the more reason to think outside the box," Jax countered. "We'll do it together, you and me, partners in crime. Well, anti-crime." Sofia rolled her eyes but couldn't help smiling. "Fine. But if this backfires, I'm blaming you." "Deal," Jax said, his grin widening. That afternoon, they put their plan into action. Sofia returned to her usual work, pretending nothing was wrong, while Jax discreetly started asking questions around the resort. He charmed the staff, tipped generously, and dropped subtle hints about a mysterious figure targeting Sofia. It didn't take long for him to find a lead. "I think I've got something," Jax said that evening, as they met on the beach. "One of the resort managers, a guy named Carlos, has been asking a lot of questions about you. And get this, he's got ties to some big development company in the States. Sound fishy?" Sofia's stomach sank. Carlos was the one who had warned her before about sneaking into protected areas. If he was behind the letter, it could mean serious trouble, not just for her, but for the conservation group she worked with. "What do we do now?" Sofia asked. "We watch him," Jax said, his voice firm. "And if he's up to something shady, we expose him." The next night, they followed Carlos after his shift ended. He left the resort in an unmarked boat, heading toward a private dock on the mainland. Jax and Sofia borrowed a small fishing boat and trailed him from a safe distance, the sound of the waves masking their approach. "This is insane," Sofia whispered as they crouched low in their boat. "If he catches us, we're done for." "Relax," Jax whispered back, his eyes fixed on the dock. "I've got a backup plan." "Oh, great," Sofia muttered. "Your last plan involved getting tangled in a fishing net." "That was an accident," Jax hissed. "This is different." They watched as Carlos met with two men in suits. Jax pulled out his phone and started recording, zooming in as the men exchanged documents. "What are they talking about?" Sofia asked. "I can't hear them," Jax said. "But whatever it is, it doesn't look good." Suddenly, one of the men pointed in their direction. Sofia's heart stopped. "Jax, I think they see us." "No way," Jax said, waving a hand. "We're totally hidden." A spotlight flashed across the water, landing directly on their boat. "We're not hidden," Sofia hissed, panic rising in her voice. "Okay, plan B," Jax said, fumbling with the oars. "We paddle really fast and hope they can't catch us." Sofia groaned. "That's your brilliant backup plan?" "Would you prefer plan C?" Jax asked, paddling frantically. "What's plan C?" Sofia asked. "There is no plan C," Jax shouted as the spotlight grew brighter. Just as the larger boat began to move toward them, a loud roar echoed through the air. Sofia looked up to see another storm rolling in, the sky dark and menacing. "Perfect timing," Jax muttered. "Hold on." The waves grew choppier as the storm rolled closer, and their little boat was tossed around like a toy. Carlos's boat turned back toward the dock, unwilling to risk the worsening weather. Sofia and Jax paddled as hard as they could, finally reaching the safety of the shoreline just as the rain began to pour. They collapsed onto the sand, soaked and exhausted. "Well," Jax said, breathing hard, "that could have gone better." "You think?" Sofia said, shoving him lightly. But despite the chaos, she couldn't help laughing. "You're lucky I didn't push you overboard," Jax grinned. "You'd miss me too much." Sofia rolled her eyes, but her smile lingered. "Come on, let's get out of here before we catch pneumonia." Back at the village, they dried off and went over the footage Jax had recorded. Though the audio was faint, one phrase stood out clearly: "Sell the land and clear the area." Sofia's heart sank. "They're trying to take over the conservation area." Jax frowned, his mind racing. "Not if we stop them." "How?" Sofia asked. "They're powerful, and we're just us." "Then we'll need to find someone even more powerful," Jax said, his eyes lighting up with determination. "I know people, Sofia, people who can help. We're not letting them get away with this." For the first time, Sofia felt a spark of hope. "Okay," she said, "let's fight." As they sat together, planning their next move, neither of them noticed the shadowy figure lurking outside the window, watching their every move. The night was quiet except for the rhythmic chirping of crickets outside Sofia's small home in Mullins River. Jack sat at the table, scribbling notes and diagrams onto a crumpled sheet of paper. Sofia leaned over his shoulder, her brow furrowed. "Are you sure you know what you're doing?" she asked skeptically, watching him sketch what looked suspiciously like a flowchart of connections. "Absolutely," Jack said, though his tone betrayed just a hint of doubt. "If Carlos is working with this development company, we just need to expose their plans. Once we show how illegal and harmful their takeover would be, they'll back off." "And how exactly are we exposing them?" Sofia asked, handing them a strongly worded letter. No, Jax replied with a smug grin. We're going public. Social media, news outlets, environmental groups, you name it. Sofia sat back, arms crossed. Jax, no offense, but you don't exactly scream eco-warrior. I don't need to, he said. You do. You're the face of this fight. I'm just the guy behind the curtain. Sofia raised an eyebrow. And you think people are just going to listen to us? Not just us, Jack said. I've got some friends who owe me favors. Influential friends. He smirked. And unlike Carlos, I'm very good at making things go viral. Before Sofia could respond, a faint sound outside caught her attention. She froze, her ears straining to catch it again. What's wrong? Jax asked, noticing her sudden stillness. Shh, Sofia whispered, holding up a hand. Did you hear that? Jax tilted his head, but all he heard was the rustling of leaves in the wind. It's probably just a Ash! A glass bottle shattered against the side of the house, making them both jump. Sofia sprang to her feet, rushing to the window. Outside, she saw a dark figure disappearing into the trees, their silhouette illuminated by the faint glow of the moon. Someone was here, she said, her voice tight. Jax joined her at the window, his jaw tightening. Do you think it was Carlos? Maybe, Sofia said, or someone working for him. Jax turned to her, his expression serious. You need to stay somewhere safe. I'm not running, Sofia said firmly. This is my home. And this is your fight, Jax countered. But you're not fighting it alone. The next day, Jax's plan began to take shape. He spent hours on his laptop, reaching out to contacts from his tech world who could help amplify their message. Sofia, meanwhile, rallied support from the local community, explaining the threat to their village and the nearby conservation area. By the end of the day, they had a small but passionate group ready to fight back. This isn't just about the land, Sofia told the crowd gathered at the village square. It's about protecting our way of life. It's about standing up to people who think they can take whatever they want just because they have money and power. Jax watched from the sidelines, his admiration for Sofia growing with every word. She wasn't just fiery, she was fearless. After the meeting, Sofia found Jax leaning against a tree, scrolling through his phone. You're quiet, she said, folding her arms. What's going on? Jax glanced up, his expression serious. I just got some bad news. Carlos isn't just working for the development company. He is the development company. Sofia's stomach dropped. What? His family owns the company, Jax explained. They've been buying up land all over Belize, turning it into luxury resorts. And now they want the conservation area because it's prime real estate. Sofia clenched her fists. So he's been playing us this whole time. Pretty much, Jax said. But now we know who we're up against. That night, as Sofia and Jax sat on the beach, their plans laid out before them, Sofia couldn't help but feel a sliver of doubt. What if we can't stop them? She asked quietly. What if it's too late? Jax reached over and took her hand, his touch warm and steady. Hey, he said softly, you're the one who taught me that nothing worth fighting for is ever easy. We're not giving up. Sofia looked at him, her heart aching with a mix of fear and gratitude. You've changed, you know. Yeah, Jax said with a small smile. I guess I have. Before either of them could say more, a light flickered in the distance. It was coming from the direction of the docks. Do you see that? Sofia asked, squinting. Jax nodded, his expression hardening. Yeah, let's go. They hurried to the docks, keeping to the shadows. As they approached, they saw Carlos and a group of men unloading crates from a boat. One of the men opened a crate, revealing stacks of cash and what looked like legal documents. "What are they doing?" Sofia whispered. "Bribery," Jack said grimly. "They're paying off officials to approve the development." Before they could retreat, a flashlight beam swung toward them. "Who's there?" Carlos's voice rang out. Sofia and Jax froze, their hearts pounding as the men turned toward them. The fight wasn't just about land anymore. It was about survival. The flashlight beam darted closer, its sharp glare slicing through the shadows. Sofia grabbed Jax's arm and yanked him down behind a stack of fishing nets. They crouched low, their breaths barely audible over the sound of waves lapping against the dock. "Spread out," Carlos barked, his voice cold and commanding. "Whoever's here better start running, or this'll get ugly." Jax's grip tightened around Sofia's hand. "Any brilliant ideas?" he whispered. "Yes," Sofia hissed back. "Stay quiet and don't move." "Love that for us," Jax muttered. The sound of heavy boots thudded against the wooden dock. One of Carlos's men paused near their hiding spot, his flashlight sweeping dangerously close. Sofia held her breath, silently praying the man wouldn't notice Jax's shoes sticking out just slightly from behind the nets. "Think they're gone?" the man called out. "Keep looking," Carlos snapped. Jax leaned closer to Sofia. This would be a great time for a distraction. Sofia's mind raced. Without thinking, she grabbed a loose piece of wood and tossed it toward a stack of empty barrels a few feet away. The barrels clattered loudly, and the flashlight beam swung in their direction. "There!" one of the men shouted, running toward the noise. Sofia and Jack seized the moment, slipping away from their hiding spot and darting toward the end of the dock. They had just reached the edge when Jax tripped over a coil of rope, landing with a loud thud. "Seriously?" Sofia hissed, yanking him to his feet. "Not my finest moment," Jax admitted, wincing. The commotion alerted Carlos and his men, who turned back just in time to spot the pair sprinting down the beach. "Stop them!" Carlos roared. Sofia and Jax bolted, their feet pounding against the sand. The men were gaining on them, their shouts growing louder. "Over here!" Sofia whispered, pulling Jax toward a narrow path that wound through the mangroves. The dense foliage provided some cover, but the branches scratched at their arms and faces as they ran. Jack stumbled again, this time grabbing onto a tree to steady himself. "We need to talk about your cardio," Sofia panted, glancing back at him. "Now's not the time," Jax wheezed. They finally emerged onto a deserted stretch of beach, the moonlight reflecting off the water. Sofia stopped to catch her breath, but Jax's attention was focused on the distant lights of Carlos's boat. "They're leaving," Jack said, pointing. Sofia followed his gaze. Sure enough, the men were loading the crates back onto the boat, clearly spooked by the encounter. But before they climbed aboard, Carlos turned and shouted something that sent chills down Sofia's spine. "You're making a big mistake, Castillo. Stay out of this or you'll regret it." The boat roared to life and sped away, disappearing into the dark horizon. Back at Sofia's house, the tension hung thick in the air. Jax paced the small living room while Sofia sat at the table, her hands wrapped around a cup of tea that had long since gone cold. "This is bigger than we thought," Jack said, his voice tight with frustration. "They're not just bribing people, they're threatening you." "It's not the first time I've been threatened," Sofia said quietly. "But this feels different." Jack stopped pacing and looked at her, his expression softening. "You don't have to do this alone, Sofia. We'll find a way to stop them." "How?" she asked, her voice breaking. "They have money, power, and connections. What do we have?" Jack sat down beside her, his hand covering hers. "We have the truth, and we have each other." Sophia looked at him, her eyes searching his face. "Why are you doing this, Jax? You could walk away, go back to your life in San Francisco, and forget all about this." Jax's gaze didn't waver. "Because I don't want to walk away. For the first time in years, I feel like I'm fighting for something that actually matters, and for someone who matters." Sophia's breath caught, but before she could respond, there was a knock at the door. They both froze. "Were you expecting someone?" Jax whispered. Sophia shook her head, her heart pounding. Slowly, she stood and approached the door, her hand hovering over the handle. "Who is it?" she called out, her voice steady despite the fear coursing through her. "It's Maria," came the familiar voice of Sophia's neighbor. "Let me in." Sophia opened the door to find Maria standing on the porch, her face pale and anxious. "What's wrong?" Sophia asked, pulling her inside. Maria glanced at Jax, then back at Sophia. "I just saw Carlos and his men in the village. They're asking questions about you. They're saying you're trying to ruin everything." Sophia's stomach sank. "What did you tell them?" "Nothing," Maria said quickly. "But they're angry, Sophia. You need to be careful." Jack stepped forward, his jaw set. "They're trying to scare her, but we're not backing down." Maria looked at him, then at Sophia. "Whatever you're planning, be smart about it. Carlos isn't someone you want to cross." Sophia nodded, her determination hardening. "We will be. Thanks for the warning, Maria." After Maria left, Jax turned to Sophia. "We need to move fast. Whatever they're planning, we have to get ahead of it." Sophia nodded, a spark of fire returning to her eyes. "Then let's make our next move." The next morning, Jax used his connections to arrange a meeting with an environmental lawyer in Belize City. Meanwhile, Sophia gathered evidence of Carlos's illegal activities, compiling photos, recordings, and testimonies from locals who had seen his underhanded dealings firsthand. Their biggest weapon, however, was the video Jax had captured on the docks. The sun rose over Mullins River, casting a golden glow on the small village. Despite the threats and sleepless nights, Sophia and Jax were more determined than ever. Their fight had caught the attention of not just the local community, but also international environmental organizations. It was time for the final blow. Armed with the evidence they had gathered, Sophia and Jax held a press conference in Belize City. Journalists and activists crowded into the small venue, eager to hear the story that had been dominating headlines for weeks. Sophia stood at the podium, her voice steady but filled with passion. "This fight is not just about saving a piece of land. It's about protecting our home, our heritage, and the fragile ecosystems that sustain us. Developers like Carlos think they can bully us into silence, but today we say enough." Jack stood beside her, his presence a quiet but powerful support. He presented the video footage he had captured, along with documents they had uncovered, showing the bribery and illegal tactics the developers were using to seize protected land. The room buzzed with outrage as the evidence played on the screen. Reporters took furious notes, and questions flew like arrows. Sophia answered each one with calm determination, her passion shining through. By the end of the conference, the tide had turned. The government announced an immediate investigation into the development company, and Carlos and his associates were placed under scrutiny. Back in Mullins River, the village gathered to celebrate. Laughter and music filled the air as children played in the streets and neighbors shared plates of food. Sophia sat by the water's edge, watching the sun dip below the horizon, her heart finally at peace. Jax joined her, carrying 2 cups of coconut water. He handed one to her and sat down, the warm breeze ruffling his hair. "We did it," Sofia said, a small smile tugging at her lips. He took her hand, his eyes searching hers. "Sofia, you showed me what it means to fight for something real. You made me see the world differently, made me see myself differently. I don't know what the future looks like, but I know I want to be by your side." Tears glistened in Sofia's eyes as she squeezed his hand. "I never thought I'd let someone in, Jax. But you changed everything for me. You showed me that I don't have to do it all alone." Jax leaned closer, brushing a strand of hair from her face. "I'm here, Sofia. Whatever you need, whether it's building a research center, saving manatees, or just teaching me how to fish without catching a shoe, I'm in." Sofia laughed through her tears. "I think the manatees will appreciate that." As the stars began to twinkle above them, Jax wrapped an arm around her, pulling her close. "You know," Sofia said, her voice soft, "I think this is the start of something amazing." "I think so too," Jax replied, "and I'm not going anywhere. We'll build something beautiful together, your dream, your future. I'll be here to support you every step of the way." Their lips met in a kiss under the Belizean moon, a promise of love, partnership, and a shared future. The story of Jax and Sofia reminds us that love and purpose are found in the most unexpected places. It teaches us the importance of standing up for what is right, even when the odds are stacked against us. True strength lies not in wealth or power, but in courage, integrity, and the willingness to fight for the things and people that truly matter. This is the conclusion of Love Under the Belizean Moon, a Caribbean romance story. If you enjoyed my story, give it a thumbs up. Comment so that I may know your thoughts. And share it with your friends. Subscribe for more Caribbean romance stories. Let the rhythm of the waves and the allure of tropical nights sweep you away. This is Irene Pandy Slusher saying, don't stress, but as we say in Belize, go slow.